In the heart of Colombia, where the dense jungle whispers ancient secrets, two hunters set out on a journey that would forever alter their fates. Armed with guns and greed, they were not merely hunters, but men chasing the allure of quick wealth. One of them, a former thief, had once made a living robbing unsuspecting tourists who wandered too close to the edge of the forest. But now, his desire for riches had led him and his friend to the perilous task of hunting snakes whose skins were worth millions in the black market. Yet, as he lay on the ground, hands trembling in surrender, he muttered, "This job isn't for me." The other hunter, determined to convince his friend, promised that if he left behind his petty thefts and focused on this dangerous venture, they'd both be millionaires in no time. But their dreams of wealth were about to spiral into a nightmare far beyond their control. And so begins today's tale. Another story was unfolding. Josh and Sophia, a couple on the brink of separation, had come to this remote part of the world for one last trip together. It was supposed to be a final chance to reconnect, but the strain between them was palpable. Josh still clung to the hope that maybe, just maybe, something would happen on this trip to change their fate. But Sophia's eyes told a different story. She was already half gone, ready to move on. They arrived at their hotel, a rustic lodge that clung to the edge of civilization, where their old college friend Marcus was waiting for them. "Dinner tonight, just like old times," Marcus said with a grin, trying to lighten the mood. They agreed, though it was clear the tension between Josh and Sophia was not something a casual dinner could fix. The hotel only had one room available, forcing Josh and Sophia to share. "It's fine, you take the bed. I'll sleep on the sofa," Josh offered, trying to keep the peace. But his gesture only irritated Sophia further. "You don't have to be so nice," she snapped, the bitterness in her voice cutting through the already strained atmosphere. That evening, over dinner, Marcus excitedly told them about a place called Chourche, a hidden gem deep in the jungle with a breathtaking waterfall at its peak. "You two should check it out," Marcus suggested, unaware of the storm he was about to stir. Josh, eager to do something together, suggested they go, but not without a jab at Sophia. "I'm not sure if Sophia can handle the hike," he said, almost offhandedly. "We could go alone." Sophia's eyes flared with anger. "Who are you to decide what I can or can't do?" She stormed out, leaving the men in stunned silence. Marcus looked at Josh, shocked at the bitterness between them. "I had no idea things were this bad," he said softly. Josh just shook his head. "After this trip, we're getting divorced. It's over." The next morning, determined to make the trip to Chourche despite the tension, Josh and Sophia set out alone. Marcus had gone off on business, leaving them to navigate the jungle paths on their own. At the hotel's reception, the clerk warned them about two routes. "Avoid Las Arenas," he cautioned, his voice taking on a grave tone. "The swamps there are treacherous, and the snakes, they're more dangerous than you can imagine." As they set off, neither of them noticed the shadowy figure that began to follow them. Rahat, a hunter sent by the hotel receptionist, tracking them like prey. The journey was arduous, the air heavy with the threat of rain, and the further they went, the darker the sky became. Josh knew that if they got caught in the rain, it would be nearly impossible to make it back safely. But Sophia was reluctant to turn back, the stubbornness that had always defined her now pushing them deeper into danger. As they approached the spot where they had left their car, they saw a man trying to steal it, the same man who had been sent by the hotel clerk to rob them. Fear gripped them as they hid in the underbrush. Sophia urged Josh not to confront the thief, but he was determined to prove himself. "Stay here," he whispered, before stepping out into the open. But the man did not flee at the sight of Josh. Instead, he turned a gun on him, demanding their money. Sophia, terrified, handed over her bag without hesitation. But as the thief turned away, Josh saw his chance. He grabbed a nearby stick and struck the man, who reacted by firing a shot into the air. They bolted, running blindly into the jungle, the echo of the gunshot still ringing in their ears. Before they knew it, they had crossed into the forbidden territory of Las Arenas. The ground beneath their feet became soft and treacherous, the air thick with the scent of decay. As they ran, they became separated, the dense foliage swallowing them whole. Sophia, blinded by fear, collided with a tree branch and fell, her body sinking into a swamp. Panic overtook her as she struggled to free herself, but the more she thrashed, the deeper she sank. Josh, hearing her cries, doubled back to find her. Seeing her trapped in the mire, he frantically searched for something to pull her out. A branch, a vine, anything. He found a sturdy stick and held it out to her. But as Sophia grabbed it, the stick snapped, plunging her deeper into the muck. "Stop moving," Josh shouted, his voice breaking with fear. "You'll sink faster." But Sophia's panic was too great, and before long, she disappeared beneath the surface, leaving Josh no choice but to dive in after her. The swamp clutched at them, dragging them down into its murky depths. It was almost impossible to escape, and their chances of survival dwindled with each passing second. Meanwhile, Marcus had returned to the hotel, oblivious to the danger his friends were in. He listened to a voicemail from Josh, explaining they had gone to Chourche and might be late returning. Marcus thought nothing of it, but the truth was far more dire than he could imagine. In the swamp, Josh and Sophia were barely holding on. As Josh fought to keep them both afloat, Sophia's hand brushed against something solid, a snake's egg, half buried in the muck. Her mind raced, and she suddenly had an idea. "Josh, the ground might be solid where the egg is. Try to push us that way." But as Josh pushed, they only sank deeper. Desperation set in. Josh remembered something from a guidebook he'd read earlier, that in a situation like this, movement should be minimized, and a rope tied to a tree was the best chance of escape. But they had no rope, no tree, nothing to cling to but each other. As Sophia's hand searched the muck, she felt something cold and rigid, a body. Her breath caught as she realized it was the corpse of a hunter, half submerged in the swamp. The same man who had ventured into this jungle in search of fortune, only to meet a grim end. But in his bag, they found salvation: a lighter, binoculars, a knife, and a shotgun with 2 remaining shells. Josh had an idea. They could make a rope from the straps of the bag, combined with strips from their clothing. But even then, they would be short by several feet. "We'll need more material," Josh said, eyeing his jacket. "If I cut this up..." But Sophia shook her head. "You'll freeze without it. Use mine." For the first time in what felt like ages, Sophia saw just how much Josh cared for her, despite everything that had driven them apart. As they worked to fashion a makeshift rope, a helicopter passed overhead. They shouted, waved, but their cries were swallowed by the jungle. Defeated, they sank into despair. Sophia's mind wandered to their children, the thought of them growing up without parents bringing tears to her eyes. Suddenly, Sophia cried out in pain as ants began biting her neck. "Here," Josh said, handing her a bottle of alcohol he had brought instead of food. Sophia was furious at first, but Josh's voice was filled with regret. "I didn't know how to handle the divorce. I couldn't face the thought of life without you. Without the kids." Tears welled up in Sophia's eyes. She had been so close to throwing everything away, and now, in the heart of this deadly jungle, she realized what a terrible mistake that would have been. They clung to each other, their resolve strengthened, but danger was still all around them. The snake whose egg they had found was near, an enormous serpent, nearly 8 feet long, coiling through the underbrush. The snake struck at Josh, its fangs sinking into his arm. Sophia reacted instantly, grabbing the shotgun and firing. The shot missed, and the snake slithered away, leaving Josh's arm throbbing with venom. Sophia quickly tied a tourniquet around his arm, knowing she needed to slow the spread of the poison. But the bite was bad, and Josh's condition was worsening by the minute. Back at the hotel, Marcus was in a holding cell, having been arrested after a scuffle with the thief who had tried to rob Josh and Sophia. Desperate, Marcus convinced the thief to tell him where they had gone. "The jungles of Chourche," the thief said, his voice low and ominous. "They're probably dead by now." Marcus pleaded with the guards, explaining that his friends were in mortal danger, but the guards only shrugged, indifferent to his pleas. Back in the swamp, Josh's condition was deteriorating rapidly. Sophia, a doctor, knew what had to be done. The venom had caused a blood clot to form in Josh's neck, cutting off the flow to his brain. Without hesitation, she sterilized the knife with a lighter and made a small incision, draining the clot and saving Josh's life. But the effort took everything she had, and she collapsed from dehydration. When she came to, Josh was still alive, but barely. Sophia knew their only chance now was to kill the snake and use its body as a makeshift rope to reach solid ground. With the binoculars, she spotted the snake nearby and began throwing objects at it, hoping to draw it closer. The snake, enraged, lunged at them. Sophia fired the last shot, missing again, but as the snake coiled around her, Josh, with his last bit of strength, plunged the knife into its side. Sophia quickly tied the snake to their rope and threw it toward a distant rock. On her third try, it caught, and she pulled herself free from the swamp. But Josh was too weak to move. "You have to go without me," he said, his voice a faint whisper. "Save yourself." But Sophia refused to leave him. She stumbled through the jungle, barely conscious, until she saw a light, a beacon of hope cutting through the darkness. Marcus had arrived with a rescue team, their flashlights piercing the night. Sophia collapsed into their arms, her last words before passing out a desperate plea to save Josh. The team rushed into the jungle, and moments later, they pulled Josh from the swamp, alive but barely clinging to life. As the sun rose over the jungle, the nightmare finally ended. And in the end, The jungle had taken many things from them, but it had also given them something precious, a second chance.